Real Talk. We call it Ajmain. Right. Today, Alhamdulillah, I have a blessed guest who I really admire the most. MashaAllah, he's one of the
Yeah.
amazing young scholar, historian, I would say. Or there are a lot more about him that you may not know, or you didn't even know him because he always
As-
work behind the scene. And this is none other than Ustaz Shafi Mardi. And he used to... Ustaz, you live in Turkey for how long? MashaAllah. And study
For 9 years only, sir.
9 years.
For 9 years.
MashaAllah. 9 years only. MashaAllah.
For 9 years.
So
Not so long.
can you tell us a bit about where you study there so that the people watching this podcast may know more about you? And I think you play a serious critical role, I would say, because history is something that we should take it seriously, right? So
Yes, yes.
which uni you study in Istanbul? Is it in Istanbul?
No, I did my degree and my masters in Adana, which is near to the Cyprus. It's not in Istanbul.
Okay.
Yeah, so after I completed my A level at Marasot Tanjung, then I continue my degree and my masters under the scholarship of the Turkish presidency. And then after that, I start to because when I was there, I was really amazed by the history and culture. And after much reading and research, I realized that there are a lot of things to discover on the relations between Southeast Asia and also the Turks or the Ottoman Caliphate. Yeah, for me
MashaAllah.
particularly, or the Ottoman Caliphate. Yeah, because it started long before the arrival of this Western colonialism and all this thing. Yeah,
Yeah. So
so that's the reason I really, yeah.
you study dekat Adana lah.
Yes, Adana. Yes.
Is it got to do with the Adana kebab? No.
Yeah, yeah, the same city. Like if you are in Muar, they have this asam pedas, is it?
Yeah.
The like yeah, kalau Penang they ada laksa Penang. Yeah, so Adana is the city where they have this Adana kebab. Yes, very
uh,
very popular. Yes, yes. Because
so
that city is a mix of Middle East, Mediterranean, and also the Turkish culture. It's a mix. So you can see lots of different religion. Yeah, over there they have like they call it the Orthodox Church, is it? Or they call it Coptic Church. Yeah, the mosque. Yeah, they have this, even the we call it the other minorities, or maybe gypsies, or yeah, they are there. Yeah, so they are a mix of a good culture, a good balance.
MashaAllah,
Yes.
interesting, interesting.
In,
Adana kebab is like sometimes me and my wife we like to order that lah. So now it really mine, you because last time I didn't know that
yeah,
you study there, MashaAllah. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
uh,
I had a good taste of this Adana kebab. Yeah, but I
Masya,
think the one Adana kebab not in Adana is they don't taste really good actually because less spice. Yeah.
MashaAllah. So Ustaz, I just want to ask you for a start on this podcast. I felt that it's very, very important. History is very important, and to understand where we are today and who we are is to learn about history. That's why I remember
Mm-mm-mm.
Habib Hassan Alatas, the Imam of Masjid Ba'alwi, said there will be no future generation without the
Knowing the
history,
past.
without the past. Yeah. So I want to ask you,
Yes.
like, I was growing up, I saw my late grandmother travel to Hajj, but by that time in the 80s, we already fly lah kan. So
Yes. Yes.
in a time when everything is very fast, like what I mentioned, everybody take flight, convenience, we should pause and look at how Hajj was performed uh,
Mm-hmm.
during the Ottoman time period or
Yeah.
era,
Yes.
right? So what is the wisdom for us today, if you look at it?
So
Yeah.
one of the one thing which I can and one I can share is during those period there is this thing called dual loyalty. What does dual loyalty means? Dual loyalty means like politically we are under the influence of the British, but then on the spirituality or on the religious side we are under the influence of the Turks and Ottoman because of the Caliphate. So what happened is, in order for the local population, why I say local? means Singapore, Malaysia, as well as Indonesia, in order to pursue their Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, they really sacrifice their whole life to save money and then to endure the long journey, which is I think as in the modern world we don't see such sacrifice from our people actually. So what do I mean by this is just imagine your the whole journey takes more than 1 year, the journey itself, but then to save up towards that journey it takes your whole life actually. And such sacrification we don't see in the modern world, especially right now. If you look at in the we call it in Mecca, with all those luxury and all those things, is the you can see that it's so comfortable that somehow it lost the sense of we call it the religiosity or piety there actually. Because Hajj, the main purpose of Hajj, if you look at the Ihram, it teaches us to be we are equal among with our brothers and sisters around the world as a Muslim. But because of capitalism and because of the we call it the modern world, we tend to not see that equality as one of the important aspect in our daily life. Yeah, that's what I could say. Yeah.
MashaAllah, is very profound, Ustaz. MashaAllah. Ustaz,
And just want to add, sorry to
sorry.
say, just want to add.
Yeah,
Just imagine if you are in Mecca doing performing your prayer, one of your Muslim brothers slept on the roadside at the pavement in Mecca, while you are we call it praying in a five-star hotel facing the facing the Kaaba from the window. What, like, that sense of equality seems not there in this capitalistic world today actually.
MashaAllah. You, I don't know how to describe it, but I would say perhaps you hit the nail. And it's
So
like a turning point or awakening for us today. Right? Because like what you said today, like Mecca and Medina itself is very different. It's all five
yes.
star, aircon, compared to back those days, and people don't see the significance and the reality of Hajj actually
Mm,
sacrifice
mm, mm.
not only your wealth but yourself, your ego.
Yourself and your ego, all, yeah, everything. Yeah, actually, that's important actually, because Hajj, if you look, is teaches us to be equal among our own brothers. That's why we put on the same ihram. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah. Shuzad, just want to continue with you on the Ottoman, right? Since we want to share about the history itself. What role did the Ottoman play in protecting the organizing Hajj route to Mecca and Medina from Nusantara?
Okay, so what happened was, I think it started in 1864 and a little bit before that. So in the 1860s, there's like just like us in the 2000 in the 2019, we have this outbreak of COVID.
COVID. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So in the 1890s or 1800s, early than 1830s, there's outbreak of cholera. So cholera is because of we call it the sanitation of the society is not clean, water is not clean. So the most of the population died actually around the world, just like COVID. So it also influenced how the population in this colonized area like India, like Europe. What happened was lots of people died. So that's where the we call it the Western powers. When I say Western powers, means the French, the Dutch. They came together and they say that we need to handle these cholera issues with the Ottoman, because they were afraid that from after the Hajj, after the pilgrims returned from Hajj, once they went back to their respective countries, they will spread cholera diseases. So by 1864, what happened was they agreed that Karimun Island, somewhere in Indonesia, will be one of the quarantine center for locals before they return back to Indonesia. And then there's one more island, which is Saint John Island in Singapore. There is
Mm-hmm.
another quarantine island before reaching into Singapore. They will be in the quarantine centers there actually. So Ottoman delegate these quarantine centers before going and coming back to Hajj. And secondly is during this quarantine period is not easy actually. You need to be mentally strong because I had my experience quarantine for 3 weeks. You just need to be very mentally strong because you're alone. You cannot talk to anyone. So during this quarantine period, it is when local scholars, when I say local means Indonesian, Malaysian, they start to write books. They start
Wow.
write books during this quarantine periods, and then after the quarantine period ended, they will publish those books in Haji Lane actually, printed there. Haji Lane. One of the most important is this Ahmadiyah Press,
Oh yeah,
Asasiyah Press, and all these things.
yeah.
Yes. So that is when they write the books. So books can contain about manasik haji, can contain about sermon, can contain about even political literatures, even novels. Is written during that quarantine period, 3 weeks. In three
Wow.
weeks, you need to be mentally active, or else you're gonna suffer depression, all those sickness. So that's when they wrote those books, and they don't only write in we call it in Malay. They write in Jawi. They write in Pegon. Pegon means Javanese language in Jawi script or in Arabic script, Pagon, and all other language. And we saw these works in Indonesia, Malaysia. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
they still there. And at the end of the book, they have this printed in Singapore, printed in Haji Lane, and some of them they say that printed in Kampung Glam. So they are very important printing centers in Singapore. So the role of the Ottoman in the 1860s was to facilitate the quarantine process to prevent from cholera happen. But what happened was the Ottoman realized that during that period, because there's no regulation of passports. So what happened was Atol Effendi, the last Ottoman consul, suggested or implemented the we call it the regulation to have passports for Southeast Asia to go to Hajj.
Interesting.
The
So
purpose of this passport is yes, the purpose of this passport is to ensure that if anything happen, if the pilgrims somehow pass on in Mecca, they can detect it and then take back their belongings and then report to their family back at home and bring their belongings back at home. Or else there's no way to report the person who died actually. So one of the way which the Ottoman Council did was to introduce passport regulation, and the passport regulation need those. So this passport regulation is only in Singapore because they have Ottoman consul in Singapore. So people from Malaya, Thailand, Philippines, they will come to Singapore and then get their visa and passport. From Singapore, they will stay for a while in Haji Lane to learn about Manasik Haji and learn with all those mashayikh. From there, from Haji Lane, if you look, there will be beach road. So
yeah.
after they learn everything, so they take the Kapal Haji, beach road there, they will go like this. Before they go, they will visit Sultan Mosque to have their last prayer. Yeah, like we call it ceremony, sending off ceremony, and then they will from there they will move to we call it to beach road to get their kapal and go to Hajj. Yes, that's
Yeah.
how the role takes in. And
Yeah.
also one of the other role of the Ottoman is once they reach Jeddah, because during that time there's Bedouin. They will always steal from these caravans that traveling from Jeddah to Mecca. So the Ottoman also ensure that transportation from Jeddah to from Jeddah to Mecca have a safe passage for those pilgrims, and then also ensure that there will be no manipulation of prices. So that's how they did to ensure that those pilgrimage or those pilgrims will be safe in their journey to perform their Hajj actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ustaz, is it really true that during that period the Dutch didn't allow the Indonesian, that time we call it Indonesia, we haven't call it Indonesia lah. We
Yeah,
call
we
it
call it Dutch East Indies.
yeah, or Sumatra,
Yes,
right? They were not
Sumatra. Yes.
ever banned or prohibited to travel for Hajj. Is it true that they travel to
Uh,
and
yes.
then
So what happened was,
yeah,
there was like, I think this is before. I think if you know SNOC, Professor Snob. What
Yeah.
happened was before that period, I think in the 1800s, there's a rebellion. You may say rebellion because from the perspective of Dutch, or uprising from the perspective of the locals.
Yeah.
So what happened was, there are rumors that through Hajj journey, these Indonesians, today we call it Indonesians, they will we call it get influenced by Indonesians in Mecca to launch for we call it jihad or uprising against the Dutch. So what happened was the Dutch was so worried that they say that in order to stop this influence of ideologies and to maintain their hegemony towards Indonesia, they tried to stop it uh, at the early stage, but somehow the Indonesians managed to get away with it because they traveled through Singapore. And from Singapore, because in Singapore during that time they provide we call it jobs and also all other necessities to Hajj, and also there's a lot of Hadramis in Singapore, so it's somehow they can evade this Hajj restriction by the Dutch to go to Mecca. Instead, they will go through Singapore. So yeah, there is we call it a period where they start to stop it, but somehow it doesn't. It is not. They don't call it. They don't get the the result. So what they did was, and then instead of after that, after the 1900s, what they did was, instead of stopping them, they will put some spice, Dutch spice, in Mecca and in Jeddah to see the movements of their own people there in
Oh,
Mecca, and yeah, through the Dutch consul. That's how they did it. Yeah.
so in a way, the Ottoman kind of really make them be who they are in the sense lah. Kan, orang punya local
Yes. Yes. So
identity.
that's yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm trying that the first time I said that there's this thing called dual loyalty. So politically, you need to be under the, we call it Dutch or British, but then spiritually is under the Ottoman. There's a dual loyalty during that period. So after that, what the Dutch did was, they even we call it have this they even provide kapal haji, yeah, kapal haji to these Indonesians. But unfortunately, in this kapal haji, it's a segregation of classes. So the locals and the Hadramis will be at the lower deck of the ship, and the other so-called European status will be on the upper deck of the ships. So that's where that's what I mentioned about the inequality. And if I look at today's world, it doesn't have much different actually. Yeah, the inequality to have it on equality, there's not much different actually.
So it's a colonial way of dealing things, right?
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
in a softer tone, yes.
Yeah. So, but then we start right. It's very interesting that actually, if you look at it, the Ottoman not really presence that much in Indonesia compared to Singapore, right? Correct me if I'm.
It because the Ottoman is not like other colonial powers. So when I say other colonial power means like either they will bring their political power here, other colonial like Western power, they will bring their power, their we call it their administration here, or they will bring their people or military. That's how other colonial powers works. But then for Ottoman, they during that period they don't really look at they don't look power and influence from that perspective. What they did was they will based on the idea of religious based identity. What do I mean by religious based identity is like if you are Muslim, you are considered Ottoman. So what
Yeah.
happened was, even if we look at the Hadramis in Indonesia and Singapore, some of them are considered Ottoman because at that period there's no nation state actually.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a yes, it's not a nation state. It's more of the religious based identity. So even like if you look at the earlier in Singapore, the earlier population or the earlier ethnic came to Singapore, such as the Armenian or the Jews, they are all Ottoman citizen actually. If you look from they are all Ottoman citizen. because the Ottomans spread from Baghdad up to Istanbul, up to Balkan. So when they migrated Singapore, they were actually, most of them are under the Ottoman citizen. So Ottoman presence depends on how we look at the lenses actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Ustaz, it's interesting also. You make me reflect about the journey. You mentioned about Jeddah as the port where they arrive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the
Yes.
most of the pilgrims or going to Hajj, they take off or sail lah. We say take off lah macam flight.
Mm-hmm.
They
See.
from Haji Lane, and then
Yes.
Haji Lane, what is their route like, Ustaz? Do they stop at Gujarat or they do stop at
Yes.
Medan?
So yes. So what happened was from Singapore, they will continue up to Penang, if not mistaken. Then further up, they will stop at Sri Lanka or Ceylon. Then they will go to, yeah, they will follow all this from Sri Lanka. During this stop, they will not only stop, but then they will also refill what is needed and also take more pilgrims inside, actually in the ship. So the whole journey, then they will stop at some parts of Yemen and all this thing, and continue up to the Red Sea. And yeah, that's how they took it actually.
So minus plus, depending on the weather also, right? How
Yes, we
fast
need
they
depending on weather.
maybe
Yes.
they have to stop the ship. So this is why maybe it took them like 4 months to reach from Nusantara to
Yes. Yes. So the
Mekah.
whole journey, yeah, the whole journey, go and come back to Hajj is like 1 year plus actually. The whole journey, because it depends also during before the arrival of steamship. There's also the the sail ship, right? So it depends on the wind and all these things. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we also need to include the quarantine period. They need to stay in quarantine, right? So yeah, it's like it will take you one year actually,
So
1 year
you
plus
you told me just now the quarantine is 3 weeks, right?
3 weeks. Yes.
So that means that
So
they have to leave. Is it during the time of Rajab?
should be earlier. It should be earlier than that.
Wow.
Should be earlier because there's quarantine. To go there, you need to quarantine, and then to come back, you need to quarantine. You know those things. Yeah, sure. The whole journey is like 1 year plus, and is like some of them don't even, like, they don't return is because they pass away in Mecca. One of them is Sayyid Abdullah bin Umar Al Junaid. He's the first Ottoman consul general in Singapore,
Was he the
and
one?
then he died.
Sorry,
Was
was
that?
he the one who built the mosque, Masjid Kampung Umar? No,
I
different.
think the father, his father. Yeah, should be this father.
Yeah.
So he was appointed as the Ottoman consul to Singapore. But then after his appointment, I think the next year when he went to Mecca, he passed away because of cholera. Yes. And then that position was taken over by his brother, Said Junaid bin Umar Al Junaid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very very interesting because now we learn about their struggle, how long
Yeah.
and how it takes and that. So Ustaz, during that period, do you know of any record that there is a Sheikh Haji or travel agent at that period of
Oh,
time?
okay. That record, I think that's more of the transaction record. I don't see it. Yeah. I've not seen yet. Yeah, but one of the most prominent is this. He's not Sheikh Haji, but then he who controls the ship for the Hajj, which is Sayyid Muhammad Asragov. So he is the one. So Sayyid Muhammad Asragov is, I think, he's a very interesting man. He's a very interesting man, in which, like, they say that his ship before the Hajj as a cargo ship, but then during the Hajj, it can transform into the Hajj pilgrimage transportation ship. I don't know how they do it, but then there is the way of doing it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What to do,
and
ah?
then he is not Sheikh Haji, but then he is the one who provide the ship to the Hajj, and is very prominent in Southeast Asia actually. And with regards to Said Muhammad As-Sarraf, that's one incident where we call it kind of like a complaint from the Ottoman representative in Mecca. They said that there's a lot of we call it pilgrims from Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
When it's Southeast Asia, because right now it's Southeast Asia, but then during that time they call it from the Indian Ocean or the Indian land. So we don't know which Indian. Okay, they can be India, they can be Dutch East Indies, they can be Singapore. So what they say that there's a lot of we call it poor pilgrims who from India and from the Indian lands that they are stuck in Mecca and they cannot return home because they don't have fund to pay ticket to go back to their country. So what happened was that complaint was continuously being raised up by the Ottoman representative in Mecca. So in order to solve that issue, Sayyid Muhammad Asagaf did was what he did was he's the owner of the shipping company, right? So for those who cannot afford to have their return ticket to can they cannot afford to buy the return ticket, what happened was he offered a new scheme. What type of scheme is? He said that I will provide you the ship ticket, but in return for you to pay me back, what you need to do is you need to work on my plantation at Kukup Island, Johor.
Oh,
So most of the Muslims during that period was we call it were working there actually. But the problem is with such system, sometimes it lead to exploitation actually. So
yeah.
to pay off their debts and everything, yeah. But that because of that system or because of that scheme, the Ottoman is somehow serve the Ottoman interest is because they don't need to you got to spend money to help those the poor local population there stuck there actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's how the Sheikh Haji or Kapal Haji works actually.
it's interesting, lah, Ustaz, to look at how you describe or how you explain the history, right? So much to expound and to reflect, right? And you're taking like 1 year to come back, I know. And sometimes some people don't even know their family or their father or mother or
Yes.
husband or wife had died,
Yes.
right? So how
Yes.
do they get to know about it, and how is it Telegram? Not the Telegram yang but
Yeah. So what happened was before the implementation of the passport regulation by the Ottoman, there's really no way to know. If you see that no one comes back means like they already died there until they send letter. But after the Ottoman passport regulation, then they start to know that there is okay, this person died and this identity is being, and then because they will also return back the properties or the bags, luggage of this disease to the family back home actually. That's how they call it. They mitigate and regulate the passport and the situation of the pilgrims actually. Yeah,
wow, wow, it's
that's
really
that.
wakal lah. Like you
Yeah.
don't, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like compared to today, I'm sorry to say this lah, because people back then you learn to trust ah. You
Yes.
know that everything is at the hands of Allah. Like today, you are confronted with messages that instantly coming in, and
Yes.
you don't
Yes.
receive message from people. Like, where are you?
Yes. Yes.
Are you in Minang? Are you in Arafah? You know, like you
Yeah.
know, like, oh my God, I can't imagine that. Right? But last time people were like, okay, we feel sad.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that they don't feel sad. They do feel sad, but reda, like,
yeah.
I, because this is to them at that point of time is the nature of life.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
If you
And
think,
also, during this 1 year journey in the ship, they don't go for a cruise. They are in for the hike. So what they
oh,
did during the journey, they will learn all about the monastic haji and all those things in the ship.
Masya Allah.
Yeah. So and not only that, because in the ship they don't. Yeah, that's why it's not a cruise ship where they provide every food and everything. So some of them they brought all those necessities like food and all those things for this hajj, and it's like some of the family members during that period, they even before they go for hajj, they already leave a wasiat. Anything happen, if I don't come back, this is what is this, they leave a will because they
Yeah.
know that probably they cannot get they won't they are not able to get back home actually. Yeah.
That's,
So the
that's
sacrifice, yeah, the perseverance is there. And now It's more about comfort and luxury. Yes.
I think that's why also the people from the past they like to ride wheel, right? They like to ride Faraid every now and then,
Yes.
just in
Yes.
case.
Yes. Correct.
Compared to where we are were for the past 15 years, got a lot of issues. I think
Yes.
not mentally prepared like the people of the past generation, because ultimately they are also not local, right? They were traveling
Yes. Yes. Yes.
like a traveler from one place to another.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm, mm, mm. And
Hadramaut or
and
the
the funniest part is these people, in the Malay world, they have this thing concept of mudik. They have this
yeah,
called belaya.
yeah, yeah,
This is, or they have this term called hijrah. Some of
yeah,
these people, they only know this these areas like the Southeast Asia, like the Malay archipelago specifically. But then in Hajj is where they call it they see the bigger world. It's their first time seeing the bigger world, so you can understand how their struggle to see the bigger world there in their journey with different cultures.
yeah. I
There's
mean,
the yeah.
okay, so I want to ask you also this part. We're talking about the sheep. You learn manasik. Sorry, manakib. Manasik. It's so
Uh-huh.
interesting, the fake and everything lah, the tertib and all that. And also at the same time, you saw that they also left the will lah, we call it faraid or will,
Yes.
whatever terms you may call it. And it's also I felt that it's also interesting to ask you, what are the possibility, or it already happened lah kan, any danger they face physically or spiritually while traveling on the ship? Is it pirate attack, or maybe the colonial master comes after them to stop the
Oh,
ship?
okay.
Yeah, is there any danger that you read from history or you learn you can
So
share with us?
so there's one incident. What happened was, the ship belongs to the Asagao family, but not Sayyid Muhammad Asagao, but then operated by the Asagao family. It was sunk in the middle of the sea, and the people there died. That's the that's the one of the biggest you call it recorded reports there in the archives. But beyond that, what happened was, we need to know that in the this is very interesting part. So after probably in the 1914, during the World War, and during the World Wars. When I say World Wars, means World War One, World War Two. Okay, what happened was, Mecca is not only a place for you to do your pilgrimage, but then it's a place where the spread of different ideologies in Mecca. What do I mean by this? There's
Wow.
one record. There's one record by the British archives showed that the Indonesian religious scholars, among them is, if I'm not mistaken, Haji Mansur. Oh yeah, Haji Mansur. Yeah. So what happened was, he was yeah, his name is Kiai Haji Mansur. What happened was, he was when he was in Mecca. Kiai Haji Mansur was also an officer for the, we call it, Dutch embassy in Jeddah. He's one of the officers there. But then when he was in Mecca, he was approached by the, you make a guess who is influencing him in terms of ideology. Make a guess. During that period, there's three superpowers: the Western, and then the Soviet. Last is Japanese.
Japanese?
Make a guess. No, the Soviets. The
Oh,
Soviet. Yes, the Soviets. We call it the Soviets representative. He approached K. Haji Mansur towards the idea of socialists
oh,
in Mecca. Yes, interesting. And then when he came back to Indonesia, probably that's where he implemented the idea of socialist Islam. The ideology is there, but he got it directly when he was in Mecca. In Mecca, while people doing Hajj, so they have interaction with this type of ideas. And then
wow.
another one incident. There's another one incident. I think in the 1918, before the World War II started, there's a lot of we call it rumors, where the Japanese started to have interest on Islam. So what happened was, these Japanese, there are a lot of Japanese Hajj. I don't know whether they are. they are Muslim on paper, but I'm not so sure whether they are really practical Muslim or. So what happened was they are trying to influence Muslims, not only Southeast Asia, but then Muslim in the Middle East towards supporting Japanese power in
Wow.
Mecca. Why in Mecca?
Wow.
Yes. And then the funny part is one of those Japanese Muslim Hajj. While in Mecca, he wrote a book on his experience in Mecca and as a Japanese. And that book and that book was published and sell. It was published in Japan and then sold in Singapore to be
Oh.
distributed in Southeast Asia. Interesting. This Hajj is that's the thing. Hajj. I used to think that Hajj is about going there, pray, and then do the we call it the ibadah and everything. But it's also when people interacts, the ideologies, the political, the economics, all intertwined together actually. So this yeah. So that's interesting part of it actually.
Yeah, besides that, Haji Mansur, you talk about he met uh,
Soviet.
the Soviet, and is there any other particular, maybe from Singapore or even from this region, Nusantara, that pilgrims share their story, what they went through in their journey when they came back during the time of Ottoman. Is there any record that you read?
Not much during that period because we know that those period the general public they can't read and they can't write, so there's not much record of it. Those written those historical records are written either by the elites or by the colonial officers. Unfortunately, we don't have this personal experiences. Yeah, we don't have it actually.
But then again, it's very very interesting to a point where we don't see how every land, every sea are connected.
Yes, yes,
Until when you were sharing with me the history about how these pilgrims traveling to Mecca by ship, and then you can see that everything has its
connection.
yeah, and it's so interesting how Allah created the sea, the land, the
Yes.
people. Now you can see the beauty of it, right? You don't
And
see it.
then there's funny. There's a very funny incident. I will say funny, but it's not about funny being funny, but that is very interesting event. What happened was, when after the fall of Ottoman Caliphate, uh, the you call it Sharif Hussein, if not mistaken. Sharif Hussein wanted to we call it to claim as the caliphate,
Yeah,
to claim the role of caliphate. What
yeah.
happened was, there is like a conference, Islamic conference in Mecca and in Egypt. So during that period, the Indians were to say no to this to the appointment of Shah Hussein as the caliphate. But then what happened to the Indonesian is they because of they were influenced by the Indian Muslims propagation. They do not support this we call it this proclamation. Instead, Indonesians suggest who to become the caliphate. Was that make a guess that make a guess who they suggest among those people who they suggest to become the caliph.
The Indonesian.
Yes, the Indonesian suggest they suggest a name instead of Shari Hussein. There must be someone, and that someone is not from. It's not Egypt. It's not Arab.
What I mean is it from Indonesia they suggested or from India? I mean, I do not know names lah, right?
Okay.
History.
So what happened was the Indonesian suggested Mustafa Kemal Atatürk as the caliphate.
Really? Oh my God.
Yes, and because like he was one of the because during that time the only independent state was the Turkish Republic. So he call it they suggested that Mustafa Kemal Atatürk as the caliphate. But the funny part is Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Do you know who Mustafa Kemal Atatürk suggests to be the caliph?
So sorry. Yeah, he abolished the Khalifa.
Yeah, but do you know who instead of because like the Indonesian already suggests he to be the caliph, right? He didn't want to be the caliph. So Mustafa Kemal Atatürk suggests someone to become the caliph. So you know who's that person? He's a big alim Algeria. You may know him.
Abdul Qadir Jaziri? No.
No, no. He from one of the Tariqah order.
Sheikh Muhammad Alawi.
No,
Sheikh Ahmad Alawi.
I
No.
no. You know who is it? Sheikh Sunusi.
Yeah, Sheikh Sanusi. Yeah, mashallah.
Yes. Yes. So he appointed Sheikh Sunusi to become. Suggested Sheikh Sunusi to become the caliph instead of him himself. Yeah. So interesting part of it actually.
Yeah.
So, but then because during that part, Sheikh Sunusi was very, we call it, was one of the figure to fight against the French actually. So that's the very interesting period of time where because there's no caliph, so they're finding caliph. So yeah, so names are there suggested. I think there's like more than three times this Islamic conference to find caliph was being held in Mecca and in we call it in Mesir or Egypt. And in order to propagate, we need to know that Hajj is not only a time where people meet, but that is a time where propaganda papers are being spread. What I mean by propaganda papers is while Egypt using Al-Manar, newspaper Al-Manar, to to be given over to the Hajj pilgrimage and then being we call it was being brought over to this part of the world. The we call it the British through the support of the Sharif Hussein also spread their propaganda and ideology through the Hajj pilgrimage and then send it to Singapore. Yeah. So it's very interesting period where they call it the clash of ideologies is there, the clash of power is there. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting because I wanted to get there, but you were there first because you are a history. I would say you are the historian, so you get there first before me. Follow. But I uh, retracing back through the Ottoman, right?
Uh-huh.
They were as a Kadim of the Haramain. We know that
Uh-huh.
servant of the two sanctuary. What this title truly mean in practice for those who may not know history well.
I can't get what you mean. Sorry, is that?
Right, I repeat a bit to make it more precise lah.
Uh-huh.
The Ottomans were known as Khadim al-Haramain, the servant of
Uh-huh.
the two holy sanctuary. So, for the benefit of those who may not understand the history of this yet, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what what does this title mean to really mean in practice for them?
So
Yeah, lah,
so what happened? Yeah. So what happened is we need to know that the Ottoman rule on this various part of this world, like from North Africa and also Mecca, Medina, and also Balkans, they are not direct rule. What I mean by direct rule is the every they have this system called wilayat system. The wilayat system is like a regional system. So the Ottoman Sultan only influence towards the we call it towards the military and economy, while the cultural and we call it the domestic politics is all being governed by their respective governor. So even in Mecca, what happened was although they do have this title of Khadimus Sharafain, but the issue was they are not directly influenced on the process of Hajj. The Hajj is under the we call it under the administration of the Sharif. So the Ottoman only provide military assistance to
oh,
defend Mecca and Medina, not really into the religious matters. But saying that, the
interesting.
Ottoman will always have this we call it ceremony where they will bring the kiswa from from Istanbul and then go to Syria and then change the kiswa ceremony. Yes, and also they have that's the ceremony they have. But in terms of we call it micromanaging, there's not much of it actually.
Yeah. Another question pertaining to Ottoman for the benefit of history, for the benefit of people who know about the history, right? Uh, Figures like from the Ottoman, like Sultan Abdul Hamid II, invested
Mhm,
heavily
mhm.
the infrastructure like the Hijaz Railway.
Mm, mm, mm,
How
mm.
that how that does that transform the Hajj experience?
Okay. So what happened was, we know that in the 1900s, the Ottoman administered land, especially in the Middle East, was always under the influence of the French, the British, and all these Western colonial powers. So, in order to centralize the administration, or the, we call it, the power of the Ottoman, they created this Hijaz Railway. This Hijaz Railway, although its name is Hijaz for, they mention about the Hajj pilgrimage and all this thing, but if you look from the military perspective, if you look at the military perspective, it's also provide, we call it, a smooth journey for the military from Istanbul to protect Mecca and Medina actually. So it's a way, it's not only for Hajj pilgrim, but then it's also for, we call it, smooth military support. If anything happens, if the British or any Western colonial powers were to attack Mecca and Medina. So for that reason, during the World War I, what happened was, in order to ensure that, we call it, British control this, the Hijaz, one of the first thing they did was to destroy the Hijaz Railway actually. And this Hijaz Railway, what happened was, it's also supported by, or donated by, people all around the world actually. It's a, we call it, donated project actually. So can you hear me, Ustaz?
Okay.
Yes, Ustaz. Okay.
Ustaz, sorry. Okay, before we end this podcast, thank you very much. It was very very informative as mentioned, right? What can Muslim today, or what can today's Muslim, I rephrase it lah, nicer way, learn from the how the Ottoman honor and protected the Hajj?
Can you repeat your question, Ustaz? Sorry, the line was not clear actually.
Okay, so sorry. Podcast. Ask you a profound question. What can today's Muslim world, the Muslim world, learn from the Ottoman honor and protected the Hajj? How they run the Hajj and how they serve the people, the Muslims over the years. For
Mhm.
many, I felt for century, right? Actually.
Yes, yes, correct. So what I could say is like, uh, I won't say it's totally Ottoman, but then it's a good, we call it, it's a good collaboration between the Ottoman administration, which provide military assistance, and also economic assistance. But also we also need to, we call it, also mention that the local ruler, which is the sheriff, and they are also assisting a lot in ensuring that the Hajj passage is always smooth. So it is a joint effort actually. And the thing, what I could say is, what we need to learn from this Hajj journey is, not on we need to look the rituals beyond pahala, or beyond the, we call it, beyond the religious aspect. But then we also need to look that this religious aspect is not only for our life after death, but then it's also things which we need.
Yeah. Ustaz, Masya Allah, thank you very much Ustaz for this podcast. I think we have some issues with the lagging and the internet. Forgive us. You know, even technology have its own discrepancy or imperfection. Yeah, but I think I think everybody enjoy listening to this or watching this podcast, and we would like to thank you for this. And I hope to have more series of Ottoman with you, because there's so much to learn, there's so much to understand where we are today and how can we live peacefully as Muslims with many other faiths like the Ottoman, you know, built that civilization, right? And with this, I'd like to say thank you, Ustaz, for your time, for your knowledge, your wisdom, your guidance. May Allah preserve you, and may Allah grant you success in your work that you are doing. May you will gain your PhD, and you continue to learn and benefit from you, Ustaz. Thank you very much. See you again. Assalamualaikum.